Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Islamic Defense Podcast. So, as you can see, I have a new setup now. I usually used to do videos over there because I didn't have a light over here, but thanks to my patron, I now have a light, so I hope you guys can see better. So, I originally wanted to do the video live with Brother Halabi, but it's taking a while. Brother Halabi has been busy for a while. So I wanted to do another video in the meantime. So recently I actually saw the live debate between Aron Ra and some of the other three brothers at I think it's the Thought podcast or something like that. I don't exactly remember the name. I'm sorry about that. And at one point, Aron Ra says something really stupid. And the moment I saw that, I knew I had to react to this, or at least respond to this. So yeah, let's take a look at what he said in the debate, and then I'll make my comment.
Some of the arguments that you used was just simply to say that, well, if God exists, there needs to be consciousness, and for consciousness to exist, there needs to be a body to exist. Is that? Am I understanding your particular?
By definition of what a mind is, yeah. I mean, a mind is the product of biology. Yeah, I mean, a mind is the product of biology. So if there's no biology, how can you have a mind?
Okay. Is that a conclusion that you come through an inductive process, or is that a conclusion that is deductive?
That's by definition. That's what I understand a mind to be. So you have to redefine what a mind is if you want to have a disembodied consciousness. That requires a redefinition of mind, to my understanding.
Yeah. So nobody.
Can I ask
when we talk about the issue of the mind, nobody turns around and says mind by definition needs a brain or is a brain. Yeah. That is where you put the predicate within the subject. Nobody puts the predicate within the subject to say that it has to be this way.
Nobody meaning me, and a lot of other people who actually do that. Yeah.
No, because it's like
you make me laugh sometimes, because you were skiing.
Yeah, coronavirus.
So Aron Ra was basically saying that how can God exist, outside of physical structure or biological structure, because the mind is the brain, basically. And what's funny about this is that he gets immediately called out, and he still refuses, and then he immediately changes his argument and says that this is not what I said, even though we have this thing on video. Stupid! Anyway, so what exactly is the issue with this? Okay, so here he basically committed the fallacy of cherry picking. He took one theory, both in philosophy and in science, on the theory of mind, and then used that and completely ignored any other theory of mind that's out there, and then pointed his finger at that and they said, here, this is the literal definition of what the mind is. When in reality, there are many other definitions out there based on different theories, which contradicts this theory, right? So, and this is why, because he cherry-picked his premise, his conclusion does not follow from the premise, which is why his argument is fallacious. So that's the basic surface level problem with this idea of what he said. As a matter of fact, there's a scientist who, hold on, let me see if I can find him. There is actually an article by Michael Egner. He is a scientist, he's a neurosurgeon at the pediatric at State University of New York. He has won multiple awards as a brain surgeon. He's also New York Times bestseller. And yeah, he basically wrote an article for Mind Matters, and he basically explained what exactly the problem with saying things like, the mind is the brain. So basically there he highlights in his article that he quotes a philosopher who's both a philosopher and a professor of neuroscience. His name is David Chalmer. He breaks down what exactly is the issue with saying things like, the mind is basically the brain. Here, let me quote him. So basically there are two problems when mind relates to brain. The easy problem, and then there's a hard problem. So the easy problems are the ordinary scientific questions addressed by neuroscience, such as what part of the brain is active when I think, or what neurotransmitters are secreted when I feel anxious. The science may be difficult, but the questions are tractable. Scientific research has the tools to address these easy problems. So basically, this problem is basically, which part of my brain is active when I think. And this is a problem, but this is something that neuroscience can actually solve, because scientists can use their tools to look into the brain to see which part of the brain lights up when you think. But then there's the hard problem, and this is a problem that scientists cannot solve because it is outside of nature or natural method. So basically the hard problem is, how does the material brain turn into thoughts? And this is a major problem for scientists, because the question basically is, how does chemical reaction in your brain turns into thoughts? No one has this answer, and it has not been solved by science. As a matter of fact, some people argue that it is impossible for science to solve because this is simply not natural. Because there is no way a scientist can show you how a chemical process turns into thoughts. How does a chemical process basically turns into you solving problems in mathematics or you doing calculus? How does it tell you, how to feel when you see a movie or listen to music? The scientists have no idea how that happens. It just is not answerable by science. And this is basically the hard problem when it comes to mind and matter, especially in neuroscience. And this is why, says Chalmers, is that we have no idea how brain states can cause thoughts. There is certainly no explanation provided by science. And this is a scientist saying this. So I find it quite funny that Aron Ra completely ignores all these problems and just throws up his hands and says that the brain basically is the mind, when in reality it's not. Then there are also many scientific explanation that shows that mind is more than just the brain. Basically, a scientist, neuroscientist, he's actually a Nobel Prize winning neuroscientist. His name is Roger Sperry, and he won the Nobel Prize for split brain patients. He's clearly against the materialist philosophy. He basically describes himself as an idealist, and he rejects the mainstream materialism or naturalism theories of the neuroscience or the mind matter issue. So basically he says, and I quote, "I rejected the then prevalent mechanistic, materialistic, behavioristic, fatalistic, reductionistic view of the nature of mind and psyche. It was on this occasion that I openly challenged my alignment from behaviorist materialism to animistic and non-reductive mentalism." You can read about this in Mind-Brain Interaction. Mentalism, yes, dualism, no, in Neuroscience, volume number 5, page number 196. And there are many other scientists who also does not support the idea that mind is the brain. For example, there are many dualists and idealists. These are some of the school of thought that exist in neuroscience. And these ideas basically say that mind is not just simply your brain. It's more than that. For example, scientists such as Charles Sherrington, Raymond Y. Sajal, Wilder Penfield, Benjamin Libet, Roger Sperry, and John Eccles, to name a few, who does not support the idea that mind is simply the brain. Let's say that you watch a movie with your friend, whatever movie it is, right? And you really like this movie, but your friend hates this movie. Now the problem is, how is it that both you and your friend have the exact same type of brain, yet you have different experiences? I mean, if the mind was simply just your brain, then how is it that it is giving different outputs? It doesn't make any sense. Like, for example, when you use a machine that gives you output, it always gives the same output, right? For example, let's say that you buy a computer part such as a processor, right? Let's say you buy a Core i3 of the same brand and the same product. That product will always give you the exact same result and performance. Is for example, a processor is all of a sudden not gonna give you the functions of RAM or a graphics card, right? That's never gonna happen. So if mind is simply the brain, then how is it possible that the brain is always giving us different experiences? This shows us that the mind is simply not the brain. Because if it was, then we would always get the same experience. But that's clearly not happening here. Everyone is getting different experiences, which shows that mind is more than just the brain. And this is one of the main problems for me personally, why I do not think mind is simply the brain. And it just doesn't make any sense. There are also a lot of scientific evidences for this. For example, there was one research that was done where an operation was done on people where their brain was literally cut. The link between the two brains were literally cut, and yet there is not that much difference in their personality, for example. And again, that's not possible if the mind is simply the brain. There was also cases where people have near-death experiences. There are many studies that show that people experience things even when their body is completely shut down. Again, which shows that mind is more than just the brain. And inshallah, I'll make a more lengthy video on this, but that's basically the gist of it. Aron Ra has no idea what he's talking about. And for me personally, when I heard that in the debate, I was just I give props to the brothers for having such patience, because I would have not put up with this. I would have lost it. I would have gone ballistic. But may Allah preserve them. They did a very good job, alhamdulillah. And yeah, with that, I want to end the video. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe to my channel and like, share, subscribe. And also, if you like my content, then please consider supporting me on Patreon. And yeah, with that, I want to end the video. Thank you for watching. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.